Hello everyone, I'm Anika your Federal Minister for Aged Care, and I'm sorry that I couldn't be with you all in person today. I want to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which you gather today, for you, the Kaurna people, and for me, the Ngunnawal people. Together, Australians stand on the shoulders of 1,600 generations of First Nations people, and that is our shared history. So welcome to the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission's National Provider Conference. We are now 3 years into our aged care reform journey, and what a journey it has been. As providers of aged care services, you carry the lion's share of rolling out reform, and I have been impressed by your willingness to engage with us and embrace change. Government can create the legislation, regulations, and policies to create the conditions, incentives, and legal framework for reform, but it is ultimately up to you, the providers, to make it happen. By stepping up, you have demonstrated your personal commitment to improving aged care for all Australians, and for that you have my sincere gratitude. A lot has happened in the aged care reform space since the last Commission conference, including our 24/7 registered nurse requirement that is now being met 98.7% of the time on average. An average of 200 daily mandatory care minutes the sector exceeded in its first quarter, and our new finance and operations section, sometimes called Dollars to Care, on My Aged Care to make choosing aged care homes easier than ever before, alongside the star rating system. The star rating system is now just over 1 year old, and it is worth taking a moment to note how effective it has been. During this first year, we have seen a significant increase in the number of aged care homes receiving higher ratings, demonstrating that the large number of aged care reforms that we have introduced are leading to improvements in care quality. There has been a 19% increase in homes receiving 4 or 5-star ratings since December 2022, meaning that 58% of all homes are now rated good or excellent level. These figures illustrate that the star rating system is acting exactly as we designed it to by increasing transparency in the aged care system and incentivising providers to seek better ratings by improving their services. We have established an expert group to support ongoing review and maturation of relevant data, including advising on trends, algorithms, risk adjustment, benchmarks, evaluation and program enhancements, to ensure that star ratings continues to be an accurate and useful tool for older Australians and for the sector. We've also increased the minimum award wage for more than 250,000 aged care workers to ensure that the people who are delivering care receive fair pay for their hard work. And we aren't done yet. The reform journey is fundamentally about 2 things: ensuring the safety, respect and dignity within the aged care system, and introducing greater agency for those receiving or seeking care. There are other aspects to it, of course, such as ensuring that people who work in aged care are properly and appropriately supported and remunerated. However, at an elementary level, everything that we have done since coming into government has been in service of these ideals. After all, it is hard to feel dignified when you have spilled something on your shirt and no one is available to help you change. And it is hard to have a sense of agency when you do not have enough information to make an informed choice about which aged care home to move to. Addressing these issues is why things like increasing daily care minutes, introducing tools like Dollars to Care, and access to clinical care to improve the quality of life of aged care recipients are effective, important, and overdue reforms. We've now reached a critical point in our reform journey where we have brought some significant aspects online and are close to implementing the final big pieces, such as introducing the new Aged Care Act to Parliament and rolling out the new Support at Home program. The most significant issue that we are actively working to resolve is how to sustainably fund aged care, not just for this year, but for all years going forward. As our population ages, we cannot expect government to fully fund the increasing demand for aged care from a taxpayer base that is shrinking as a proportion of population. I know that funding question is something that is near and dear to your hearts as providers, and we are working across government to bring you our solutions soon. We need a financially viable system that will allow providers like yourselves to focus on delivering quality services that improve the lives of older people while also attracting additional investment. Sustainable funding will fill in the missing pieces that will allow the remaining large and impactful planks of the reforms such as the Act, new regulatory framework and the Support at Home program to be implemented. Finding the answer to the funding question is why I established the Aged Care Task Force to investigate the issue and provide recommendations. The report is still under active consideration by government, but I can share a few general observations about its contents. The report made some specific recommendations around funding, including the need to ensure that current funding arrangements are maintained for existing aged care residents to provide certainty, especially for those who have organised their personal finances around the current system. The task force reflected on the role of government in funding aged care and recommended that while government should remain the major funder of aged care, it is appropriate for participants to make a reasonable contribution where they have the financial means to do so. For providers, the recommendations support more predictable and sustainable funding in home care, along with increased capacity to cover the costs of delivering services in residential care. We are taking the time to carefully evaluate the recommendations and consider our response. Now we turn to the new Aged Care Act. The new Act is the centrepiece of our aged care reform agenda, and every aspect of it is underpinned by the principles of respect for human dignity and increased personal agency. The Act will introduce a new rights-based care model for aged care recipients to provide greater agency for individuals, new responsibilities for providers, and greater oversight by government. It represents a steep change in aged care in Australia, changing the way services are delivered, introducing new laws to ensure people are treated with respect, and superseding previously separate legislation. We want to ensure that we get this new Act right. That is why we conducted 2 rounds of consultation, focused firstly on the foundations of the new law and most recently on the exposure draft of the bill. During the recent 12-week consultation, we received 323 submissions, more than 800 surveys, and heard from more than 10,000 people at our webinars, workshops, and roundtables. We have also heard specifically from providers during our regular provider pulse surveys and are making sure that your views are considered in the final design of the Act. We are reviewing the important feedback we received so that we can finalise the bill for the new Act and share it with you and introduce it into Parliament as soon as possible. We also plan to release a consultation summary report soon so that you can see the types of feedback that we received. The reform implementation journey and the pending new Aged Care Act represent a significant amount of change across the aged care system, and everyone will need support to understand what this means for them, what they need to do, and when they need to do it, especially providers. I know you have experienced an extraordinary amount of change already, and I acknowledge that between the new Act and the recommendations from the task force, there's a lot more to come. Reforming aged care is like running a marathon, and it reminds me of some advice that my father gave me when we were training together for a half marathon. He told me to sprint up the hill, and that's what we're doing right now with aged care reform. We are sprinting up the hill. And on the whole, we have cause for optimism about the future of aged care. We are positioning ourselves for excellence and working to build a world-class aged care system that will continue to innovate and improve beyond the bounds of the Royal Commission's recommendations. We cannot do it without you, and I'm glad to see so many of you are embracing reform and working with us to make it happen. Thank you very much.